I got a DM from a good friend of mine's mom on Instagram, one
Uh-huh.
of the clips that we posted from Amanda's interview. And she wrote, "You look really tired, Krisserin." I was like, "Thanks, Kimberly."
I'm Krisserin Kelton.
And I'm Kelton Wright.
Follow our quest to publish our first novels.
From first drafts to query letters
through inevitable rejection
and hopefully eventual success.
From California
to Colorado. This is Pen Pals.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much for that.
I feel really tired. I feel great. I'm amazing.
You know why I feel great today, Krisserin? I got a blow dryer.
Oh my gosh.
I got a new blow dryer, and for the first time in my 40 years on Earth, I have a diffuser. I don't know it took so long. That's why you can't see it, listeners, but I have like perfect beachy hair today. Just because I used a diffuser for the first time. If you're on YouTube, you can just see that my like natural waves, they're just waving. I'm the surfer chick I'm meant to be.
My mom always says when you are facing anything particularly stressful, doing your hair and makeup and dressing nice is a way to put on armor to face the world. And it really does wonders
helps.
for your confidence when you feel like you look
helps.
good, even if you feel shitty on the inside. So
yeah, absolutely.
Well, speaking of feeling shitty on the inside, no, I'm kidding. How was your week, Kelton? Your goal last week was to do some self-care, right? And
No.
one time?
I had no self-care on the docket. Our goal was last week, both of us, was to write once.
Once. Correct.
Write once.
See, this is why you're the historian of the podcast, because I already forgot.
I mean, I have it open in front of me, and I've gotten way better at just writing down what we say.
Yeah.
My week was pretty good. So this week, a huge milestone in my life. My child turned 2. I celebrated the 2-year anniversary of being cut open across my abdomen and having my guts removed from my body while they yanked a mewling child out of me and then stuffed all my guts back in. And I lived. So I celebrate that as well as his birthday.
Yeah.
It was great. He turned 2 to a lot of fanfare, a lot of playground time, a lot of water tabling. And I wasn't sure I was going to count this, but I did spend a lot of time writing a letter to him for his 2nd birthday. In the early days, I've been trying to just keep a running letter, almost a journal to him. And I have a couple versions of that, but I do adhere at least to a yearly birthday letter to be like, this is what's happening. This is how I feel as your mom. This is what your dad's doing. This is what's happening at our house. This is what life is like. This is what you're like. And I was going to be like, that was my writing. But then I was like, no, girl, just try a little more. So I wrote half of the essay that'll bring back Shangri-La's. I didn't touch the novel. I read a lot this week. I read 2 books this week. Whopper, Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Denneman, long book. And I also read Nora Goes Off Script by Annabelle Monaghan.
Both of which you loved.
Both of which I loved. So we need to check back on Dungeon Crawler Carl because I had told you that I wasn't sure I was going to like this book because of the way the dedication was written. And there are elements of the writing that I'm not obsessed with, but I loved the story. I do think that you have to have a base level enjoyment of like crassness, vulgarity, violence. Though you have to be very comfortable with those things to enjoy this book. And I really think in some ways, you have to be the kind of person who likes video games. This book is essentially a video game. It's like being inside a video game and you go along the story with 2 main protagonists. And I have spent a lot of time in my life with video games. I had an older brother. I fell in love with video games of my own when I was younger, like N64 and Sega Genesis and those sorts of things. And there are a number of games that I love to sit and watch with Ben. We don't do that anymore because we have a child, but there were games that I was like, go there, there's a person to your left, go up that ladder. It's like, it felt like I was playing, but I don't have the muscular coordination to use a modern controller, which is actually true. I have a minor muscular dysfunction where I can't type correctly. I can't play the piano. I can't get my fingers to do different things, which is why I chicken peck when I type. So I can't use one of the controllers, but I enjoy watching. Anyways, this book is like being in a video game, and there are 8 of them. And so I do look forward to seeing what he does. I cannot imagine the spreadsheets this man must have for this book. I cannot imagine. And I think I read somewhere that his initial spreadsheet like crashed his computer because it was so layered. It's like he has to remember what every level up, every spell, every potion, all the combinations of how to build things. Building a video game is so complex, and he did it in a book. So for the craft alone in that way, I am obsessed with this book. So congratulations, Matt Dinniman, that you crawled out of self-publishing into the wide arena of movie and television rights.
That's incredible. I used to work at a startup that created games for kids and to teach them how to make games and how to code, and worked with several gameplay programmers and designers whose job it is to build the puzzles inside the games. And I know that it is a whole job. It's a whole feat. So to do that, and they do, write storyboards, and they have to create all of the world building and all of that. And so to do it in novel form is very fun and interesting. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are also big video game fans that would enjoy the book. I did check in with Knett, my mother, for those listeners who aren't familiar with podcast lore. My mother is #1 Pen Pals pod fan. She didn't say that it was gory. I misquoted her. She said it was crass and vulgar, and that's why she struggled to get through it.
I will say there isn't any sex in this book. It is incredibly crass, but there isn't any sex. And I actually looked up, I was like, is there any romance in this book? Like, should I be looking for like a love? And it said no.
I wonder what she's referring to then. We'll have to ask her again.
No, Knett is 1,000% right. It is crass. There doesn't need to be sex for it to be vulgar and crass. Trust me.
Okay.
But I loved it, and I can't wait to read more. I'm making Ben read it so he and I can be in like a little video game book club together.
I heard that the audiobook is really good. And the thing that's kind of frustrating for me and why I haven't read or listened to it is he hasn't made it available anywhere but Audible. You can't check it out from the library. And I'm like, what the fuck is that about? Yeah, it's not available on Libby. So for someone who's self-published, that's like, it makes sense, I guess. But I'm kind of like, don't you want people to be able to check your book out from the library?
I mean, let's call up Matt Dinniman and get him on the pod. I wonder if that's his decision or if that's part of his like publishing agreement.
Yeah, I don't know, but I don't like the trend of it. I don't like the idea that like publishers are not going to let their audiobooks be available at the library. That feels, I don't know, it goes against my morals.
Yeah, I hear you on that. On a completely different genre, I read Nora Goes Off Script by Annabelle Monaghan, which I think was her first romance novel. I think it was her debut, and it was amazing. It was such a delight. I read it in a few hours. It was just all the warm and cozies that you want out of a rom-com. It had really good one-liners. It made me laugh out loud at least 3 times. Not like, but like, when you're like, you catch yourself off guard by a funny line. And it made me buy the book. I was like, I would love to have this on my shelves to read again in like a couple years. And now I can't wait to read the rest of her books. She has like 6 of them. So I was like, what a treasure trove for me.
You're going to have a fun summer. Dungeon Crawler Carl.
Yes.
Yes. Are you going to read all of them?
I don't know. the one issue I am facing is that the wait at the library to get the next book is really long. And I
Yeah.
did look by book 4, the wait list is non-existent. So
That's telling.
I mean, it could be, or everyone's waiting to read the first book. Like
Oh,
the wait list for the first book was months.
yeah.
And so maybe people just aren't catching up because there is a wait list for 2 and 3. It's not as long, but I'm an incredibly fast reader. So I don't want to lose momentum on the
Yeah.
series. But we'll see
But
how
you don't
long
want
it
to
takes me to
buy
get
all
book
of
2.
them either.
I don't want to buy all of them. I also like I have said in the past, like once you have movie rights, I'm not as inclined to
Have you looked at
buy
Abe
the
Books?
book. At Abe Books for his books? No, I haven't. Like resale.
Yeah, I
I
do that
haven't, but that's a
sometimes
good idea.
if I want to like read a book, but I don't want to buy it from Amazon and I don't want to buy the, full hardcover price of it. I'll go and get like a used copy
That's
from
smart.
a small bookstore for like $7.
I was making me think I was trying to find the original Where's Waldo books. I was having trouble finding them in hardcover. And so I was looking at thrift books and Abe books, and the reviews were all like, Waldo is circled on every page. You said it was in good condition. If he's
That's
circled on every page,
amazing.
how can you say it's good condition?
That is amazing.
know.
I will keep an eye. You know what though? Because I like to go to estate sales. This is like my favorite thing to do in LA and it's always like really wealthy older ladies who just collect a lot of shit. But they always have a room where their grandkids stayed that have books and puzzles and toys. And I've seen several Where's Waldo books. So I will keep an eye peeled for you.
Please.
And I will pick them up if I find them. Yeah, for sure. And I'll double check to make sure that Waldo's not circled inside.
Also, there was one amazing review where this woman was like, "This is not a children's book," and she'd post all
because
these
there's like
photos
boobs and like, yeah.
zoomed in, yes, of like people having their head
Totally.
chopped off and people having sex and like all this horrible stuff.
That is so true. What were we doing looking at these books as kids? We lived in a different world than today, for sure.
I know. Oh, so good. I can't wait to expose Woods to it.
Oh man. Well, that's really exciting. I'm excited that you had such a great reading week. I wrote 3 times this week. One a little bit of like actual writing of scene. I really do feel like I'm feeling my way around in the dark with this book. And what started out as fun is, of course, now becoming work, and therefore I'm losing interest in doing it because I am tired.
And
But
remind the listeners which book you're working on.
this is my middle school love story, and it's about a parent and the principal, who have a history together, falling in love. So it's not about middle schoolers falling in love. I have to always caveat that. But I did pull out Ramona Asubel's Unstuck, and I did 2 prompts that I was going to share with you. The
Smart.
first one is called Get Out of Your Known World, Write What You Want to Know. And so the prompt or the key was start a list of curiosities. And this can be for anything. Kind of her prompt was, what do airline pilots talk about on a long flight? What was up with the hole in the ozone layer discovered in the 80s? Things like that. But I did it more so about my characters and writing lists of things that I was curious about for my characters, which really made me think I just don't know my characters as well as I need to. So that was kind of one little area of insight that came to me during this exercise.
I'm making this funny face because I also wrote a list of curiosities, things I wanted to know more about this week.
From
Yes.
Unstuck or no? You
Yes.
did the same one?
I did the same one, but I didn't do it about my book at all. I was just like, all right, let's think about like you're coming up on the newsletter, coming back again. You know what you're going to write for Sundays. You don't know what you're going to write for Wednesdays. What are you curious about right now? And yeah, I wrote a list of like Beaver relocation and Love Island casting, like a bunch of like really
Funny.
peculiar things. But that's so amazing that we were just like on the same wavelength of like
We picked the
excavate
same
a
one.
little.
Yeah. I did the one after. Did you do the next prompt
No,
in the
I
book?
didn't.
I really
Mm-mm.
liked this one. I thought it
What
was
was
pretty
it?
brilliant. It's called Fairy Taleify, using Once Upon a Time to find a frame. The prompt is try to plug your piece or what you know of it into this frame. And the frame is once upon a time and every day until one day, and because of this, and because of this, until finally, and ever since that day. And you fill it in. And I did it. And it was great. And it
That's
actually
cute.
really helped me frame the novel. It was really,
That's really
really
smart.
helpful. Yeah, this book is incredible. Everyone really does need to go buy this book because it is such a fun way to get yourself to do something every
Yeah.
day if you're really stuck writing. And I'm in the middle of it, but there's a whole section at the beginning if you're trying to get started, and a whole section on the end if you're kind of struggling at the end of writing a book. But I found it super helpful, and I won't stop talking about this book. But it is pretty nice that you and I both have the same idea. But outside of that, I wrote 1,400 words. It's something, you know?
Yeah, it's something. It's something. Is the middle school parent principal love story the one that you're going to focus on finishing this summer?
I was thinking about it. I will say, after a conversation with Amanda last week, and I reminded myself that I do have to turn in my 20 pages to my MFA program in June. My goal for my MFA program really was to work on the novel that I wrote back in 2012, 2013, The Incredible Gustafson Women. And the theme of that book is very much intergenerational trauma and alcoholism. And so having that conversation with Amanda last week really reignited a lot of my thoughts around that book. And then my mom wrote Amanda an email. My mom loved Amanda, period, full stop, but also loved the interview that we did with her because on top of Amanda being incredibly vulnerable and expressive and charming and magnetic, she had a lot of similarities to Amanda and Amanda's mom. And we talked a little bit about what my mom said and the similarities between our stories. And it reminded me that Amanda read The Incredible Gustafson Women. I sent it to her to read, we were talking about this. It must have been in season 1 where I said I wanted to send my book out to some beta readers, and I selected 2. And because there are themes of alcoholism and recovery in the book, I asked Amanda to read it because it's something that, you know, she knows intimately and helps people with. And she started talking about my book again, and I was like, oh yeah, that book.
Oh, right. That one.
So I think that I'm starting to round a corner in this burnout that I've been having. I feel like once school's out and I don't have to get up and get the kids ready and drive them all over God's green earth in the afternoon because I didn't schedule them for summer camp, it's going to free up a lot of time and mental bandwidth. And I was thinking about this for both of us. Having a deadline, like something that you have to work towards, and having someone waiting for you really does work as a forcing function to get shit done. So I'm going to give myself until, end of June. I'm going on my boy and I are celebrating our 20th wedding anniversary in June. And we're going on a trip to Canada. We're going to Vancouver and Victoria.
Ooh.
And when I come back from that, I will have I will have had to turn in my assignment for my MFA, but then I'll have some time before my residency in July to just like really figure out what the fuck I want to do.
Great.
Yeah. I feel like if I had all the time in the world, I would just work on all of these projects at the same time.
Yeah.
So I just need to get excited about being productive again, and having some sort of thing to work toward, I think will be really helpful. But
Yeah,
that's where I'm at.
I haven't taken May off from the newsletter. It's, work is such a gas. It just expands to fill the space that you have.
Totally.
And I'm sitting here at the end of May knowing I have to get back on the newsletter train being like, when? How how did I write 2 newsletters a week and work on a novel? How did I do that? And I know that I'm still very actively trying to get out of this depression, wean, get back to myself. It helps that the leaves are coming out and that it was really warm here the other day, and the dirt road got really hot, and then it rained, and it had that perfect smell of like
That smell.
hot, wet summer dirt. And I just
Mhm.
I felt younger. Like I just embodied like who I'd been like 20 years ago. And I was like, oh, I forgot how much I miss this. Miss just like summer and being warm. And so it was really revitalizing. And so just knowing that that weather is around the corner is really helpful. And yeah, it's like just I don't know, I'm going to look at my schedule and just start carving things in, but I am intimidated by having to do more work again, but I think it'll be healthy to have like creative wheels turning. And I do the month off from the newsletter did give me some freedom where I was just kind of like, who fucking cares how many subscribers I have or like, if they like what I'm writing. Like the point of me starting Shangri Logs was always like I was inspired and I had something I wanted to write and I wrote. And it was like, it's nice that people enjoy it. Obviously, that's a huge boon for my career. And it was really amazing timing that I got on Substack so early. But like now I'm just in like a functioning ecosystem that's not highlighting me. And the point is for me to write what I love. And obviously we all know that, blah, blah, blah. But like to feel it and to come back to that sensibility, I think is always really challenging for me. And getting a little inkling of that feels very healthy. And we'll see. It's like, it doesn't have to last forever, and I can have loosey-goosey rules if I want to. I normally, when I pause the newsletter, I pause paid subscriptions too. And I didn't do that this time. I was like, listen, I'm just taking a couple weeks off. Just let the girl have a couple weeks. I'll be back. I'll be generating stuff. If you want to unsubscribe, that option is available to you. But for now, we're going to go easy on Kelton. And it was nice to take that stance for myself.
And you'll produce better work for it,
Yeah.
I think when you write from a place of, I don't want to use the word desperation, but I don't know what other word to use, it produces work that kind of reeks of it. Not that you do that, but I'm just reminded of, I always talk about this with Boyan. I got to a point and I was 21. So, this was a long time ago where I was like, I don't care if I get married. I'm not going to do this to myself. I'm not going to be in the rat race of like trying to find a partner and settling for whomever. And it was the minute that I made that decision that I met Boyan that I was like, I don't give a fuck anymore. I'm not even going to like date. I'm just going to live my life. And if it happens, it happens. That was the minute I met Boyan. And
That's
I think
amazing.
I think that that's what you attract these things to yourself when you're being really authentic to who you are as an artist. And that's when you do your best work. And it leads perfectly, this conversation, into a segue into a listener letter that we got in the last week from Paige Parsons. It says, "Hi, Krisserin and Kelton. I wanted to write to say thank you for the podcast. I started listening while pregnant, but since having my son last September, hearing about both of your experiences and how you've been able to fit and sometimes not fit writing time into your lives while you're parenting and also working is really reassuring and also helps me feel like it's okay that I'm not as productive right now as I hope to be while home with my baby. I am on a year-long maternity leave, thanks Canadian government, from my journalism job, but also have zero childcare other than when my husband is off work, so it's been harder to find time to write than I thought it would be. However, now that my kid is finally, sometimes napping in his crib instead of on me, I have a bit more available time. The podcast also inspired me to join a couple of Sunday book writing sessions that a group of local writers puts on in my city that are coming up next month. My question is, if you had limited time and a few precious dedicated writing days coming up, what would you work on? I have a first draft of a novel written during the early pandemic years that I tinker on and off, but it has mostly been languishing. I think about it often and believe it has a lot of potential, but it needs a full rewrite with all the structural and plot changes I have in mind. I also have a list of several shiny new ideas that seem pretty tempting to jump into. I'm wondering if it's better to use the sessions as a chance for a fresh start and to ride the high that comes with digging into a new concept. I'm usually a finish what you start kind of gal, but maybe it's better to move on, at least for now. For what it's worth, the existing first draft is a coming-of-age Y2K cult novel with a bit of mystery. The new ideas that I am most interested in starting are a multi-POV roller derby novel focused on amateur adult athletes and friendship romance, or a sister road trip romp featuring a senior citizen bus tour and wacky grandfather. All of these ideas sound so good. I'd love to
all of these.
all of the above. I'd love to hear what you choose and how you decide what to prioritize when time is limited.
I attached to one part of Paige's question, which is she said she's a finish what you start gal. And I have kind of been grappling with my own identity and like what I attach to in it in writing. And that is can't finish anything long, can't stick through a big project. And I've been trying to kind of release myself of that.
Yeah, I'm like, that sounds like a limiting belief.
Yeah, it's a very limiting belief, but it is thus far true. But that doesn't mean that it is always true. And I think like when we attach to these concepts of who we are and let them kind of dictate what we do, it's always worthwhile to push against that. If you, Paige, choose to start a new project, that does not mean that you didn't finish what you start with the other project. It just means that you're tabling it for a moment until you feel like you're excited to work on it again. I think one thing I've really attached to in this season is that writers are constantly jumping between projects, especially successful ones, because they're at different stages for all of those projects. And old projects come back, you get a 2-book deal and you're like, I have this thing I've shelved forever. Like, does this look good? I think of Olivia Mentor, like Little One that just came out was the first novel she started on. And it wasn't the first one that got published. It was the second one. And so there's this element of play with your writing that should stay intact, where you can move from the different projects and not feel like you are abandoning one. You are waiting until it's the right time to work on it. If I was you and I had a 9 to 10-month-old baby who is just beginning to sit in their crib for naps, which I don't know what that's like. Congratulations. Good job. Then I would say start something new. Like, because if you go back to a project you've been working on forever and you have these precious few hours that have just been awarded back into your life, then those hours are kind of spent like mucking through a swamp, kind of. You're like pushing things out of your way. You're trying to see where the water is clear, where the water's coming in. It's kind of messy. But if you are just like, I'm going to pot this new plant, like it's such a sweet container because it can go anywhere. And I would just take one of those ideas that you're jazzed about, like a character that you can really see, and just start by writing a description of that character from another character's POV. And get someone on the page that, because for me at least, this might not work for you. I feel the most passionate about fiction projects when I have a character that I really want people to meet. And I'm like, I gotta get this girl out of my computer. I gotta get her out of there. And so once you start with a character that you're escorting into their world, I feel like that's the most fun place to start. And it's also very reflective of your journey with a human.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Kelton for 2 reasons. I feel like that time when you are with a baby, it's difficult. Like your brain is processing so much new information, and it's also exciting because life is new and joyful in a different way. And I do think that using some of that energy to explore and be creative without feeling like you have to open up a spreadsheet and think through how you're going to completely rewrite something that's already written. I feel like it would almost be doing a disservice to that new spark of creativity that you have in your body and in your brain to go back to something that is going to require a lot of work. The other thing
You're drunk on hormones, on lack of sleep. Like the rule is to write drunk, edit sober. And you are drunk, babe. So like,
I like that description. I think also because I've done this, right? This middle school love story book that I'm working on is, hold on, one, two, three, four, my fifth book that I've started. And I'm also a finish what you start kind of gal, but I've had to put down projects and go back to them for a lot of reasons. I think one is sometimes you fall out of love with something and you need space from it to fall back in love with it again and to be re-energized to enter into the arena with that story once more. I also think that sometimes, and this goes back to the interview that we had with Mark Sarvis, you put these challenges in front of you, this story that you want to write, this multi-POV thing, or even the book that you wrote before that might be above your skill level right now. I know that for me, the book that I wrote, the incredible Gustafsson novel, the reason why it's not done is because it's ambitious and I haven't developed the skills to execute it the way I want to quite yet. I know I will get there, but it's going to take more work, more practice, more writing, more development for me to go back and execute that novel the way that I really want to. So I think that, if I were you, and I know she asked us how we choose our projects, but we're basically like, this is what I would do if I were you. If I were you.
Sorry, Paige, I'm not listening to your
Paige.
question at all. We will
we'll
answer that
it.
part.
We will answer it. Yeah. I would use this time to have fun, to, do a little bit of weight training with your brain and to get back into the rhythm of exercising that part of your brain and be creative in a way that doesn't feel like it's work. It should feel like it's generative and exciting and reflective of the state of your body and your mind and your life right now. And eventually you'll get to a place where you can jump back into the arena with the book that you wrote, around the pandemic, with enough energy and grit to complete it. And you will. I don't think that there's any shame in putting something down for a bit, knowing that you're going to pick it up again. And to Kelton's point, you labeled yourself as a finish what you start kind of gal, and you still are that person. But sometimes we take detours in life, and having a child is a huge detour. It's a detour to your body and your career and all of these things. And I know that you might feel pressure because you have this 1 year of being at home, but you have other time too. And it might not be this 1 year when you're off work, but you will. I also feel like Kelton just asked herself, how did I write 2 newsletters and work on a novel? It's incredible what we can do. It's incredible how we make the time to do the things that we were really passionate about. So, and sometimes that's the fun part, is sneaking it in. It feels like you're stealing your time back from the world.
Paige, you also just gave me such a flashback to early motherhood when I just had the baby strapped to me all the time and I was just writing over his head, just tip, 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 tip. And now, as a 2-year-old, he sits at my desk and smacks my keyboard and goes, Woodsy writing like mama. And I'm like, oh, that's right, baby.
I love that.
In terms of choosing
her question. Yeah. Her question. Which was, what did she say? If you have limited time and a few precious dedicated writing days coming up, what would you work on? How do you choose?
What would I work on? Well, since I told you that I don't finish anything, of course I want to work on something new. Look, I can't hide from the Gemini manifesting generator inside of me. I do love working on new stuff. And I had, after reading Nora Goes Off Script, had a really good idea of how to bring to life a story I've been wanting to write for a long time. I've always wanted to write about my time in the Caribbean. And I just was like, I don't want to write 22, 23-year-old's love story in the Caribbean. I don't want to go back to that. And Nora Goes Off Script gave me a really good idea of how to use my past in the Caribbean to structure a story about a character who's in their 30s. So I want to write that, but I'm like, no, you have a deadline, girl. So if I think about I don't have a precious few writing days up, but I do have a summer without Krisserin. We will be taking the summer off to work on our projects. I know. And that means that every Thursday I have 2 hours sectioned off for writing. And I I did already map out, these are the scenes you should try to write this day. These are the scenes here to try to get to a draft. So for me, because I have a deadline, because I know what my schedule looks like, that's how I'm approaching those days is I have to squeeze in this type of work. That said, free time. Free time might be used for that Caribbean story just because to have an unlock come, I feel like is a gift that you can't deny. When there's that light bulb moment, you're like, I know how the story works. It's like you owe it to yourself to spend some time, even a one pager, just being like, this is how this story unfolds. And so it's kind of like, well, how do I choose what I want? It's what I want.
Yeah. Well, it made me really sad that you said you're going to have a summer without Krisserin. Like, I'm the impediment to you getting your.
No, it just frees up 2 hours on my calendar, you know? It's like, and I'm going to keep this time. I'm not taking Pen Pals off of my calendar for the summer just because we're not recording. I'm just using
No.
Pen Pals time for our books. And obviously, Krisserin and I will be texting the whole time.
Of course. No, I mean, similarly, I spend a lot of time, editing the podcast and getting clips together. And that time will be one back for me for the summer as well. I honestly, my biggest time suck is fucking picking the kids up from school. God bless it. It's a 3-hour endeavor. And yesterday, I didn't tell you this, but yesterday there was a fire that broke out right behind Sabine's school. It was so close. And Boyan slacked me because we slack each other. He's like, there's a fire at Sabine's school. And I literally just got in the car and drove over there and picked her up from school. I didn't give a shit. I was like, I don't care how big this fire is.
Give me that baby.
I'm like, I'm taking my kid. And I went and picked up Ren and we went to a cafe and had pancakes. And I was like, this is what we're doing today. Yeah. Have you ever been to Bobby's on Ventura?
No.
Do you know that diner?
No, I don't.
It's fine. Actually, I saw David Boreanaz there. That's the second time I've seen him in a month. I saw him at the Apple store at the mall too. I was like,
maybe
Angel?
it's time for a little Buffy rewatch.
It was his birthday. He had like a little mini. Yeah. I try to leave celebrities alone. But anyway, yeah. And so yesterday I didn't have to, by the way, by the time I got home, the fire was out, but I was like, I don't give a shit. There was traffic already to get because of the fire that was backed up. Sure. And I live far enough away from my school. I was like, if it becomes a madhouse and I have to I just don't want to deal with it, thanks, Watch Duty. So I didn't have to do that yesterday. And Wednesdays are the worst because Ren gets out at 12 and Sabine gets out at 2. I'm just sitting over there for hours waiting for my kids to get out of school. All of that time can be spent doing other things. All of that time. And hopefully not work, because you are right. Work is the gas that fills all empty spaces. But I would say, for me, if I had, let's say I got to go be in a cabin in the woods for a week by myself, how would I spend that time? I think it's what I advised you to do, Paige, is I'm in the midst of all of these different projects and in the middle of all kinds of weird things. I think I would start by reading The Gustafson Women again. I would read it again. I've read it so many times. I distinctly remember Kelton being like, stop reading the fucking drafts of your book and do something about it. But I would read it again because it's been a while and I forgot quite a bit of it. I would probably write some exploratory material on some new ideas that I've been playing with, short stories that I keep having these short story ideas come to me, and usually I will pluck out 1,000 words of those just to get some ideas on paper. I would do some probably drafts from some things from Ramona's book, and I would just have fun with it and explore and be in a creative state without any stakes and just see what happens and fall back in love with being free in that way again.
Yeah. I would also read.
Yeah. I'll read a lot too.
Man, pick up a fun one. There
are some books that are on my TBR that I own. I bought physical copies of the book that I really would just love to get lost in. There are some books that I would love to revisit and remind myself why I loved them. I'm a huge Richard Yates fan, and Easter Parade is one of my favorite books of all time, and I haven't read it in a really long time, and I would love to go back to that book. I got Lonesome Dove. I really want to read it. I love big epic books set in the West. So yeah, that's what I would do.
I picked up Patrick Rothfuss, I think is his name, The Name of the Wind
Mm.
series. I opened the first pages last night and saw the map and was just like, yes,
Yes.
yes, I've been waiting for a book with a map.
I only read books with maps. Literally, that's all I do. Give me all the maps. That's the one thing about reading on a Kindle that's kind of a bummer is that there's a map and I'm like trying to like zoom in to see it and I can't see it. If you ever go on Etsy, there are people who do big woodcut maps of your favorite books. And there was the Realm of the Elderlings woodcut map that I really wanted to buy for my mom. It was $300. And then I was like, where's she going to put this? But I just love a map. I love a map and I want to have a book with a map someday, but not today. I think
We
even
have
like this historical fiction novel that I want to write, I would make a map for. It's set in
We have a
Italy.
3D printed map of our valley and the
I love
surrounding
that.
mountain ranges. It sits on our counter. And it's such like because like my novel that I'm working on right now is based on this valley. It's such a good reminder when I look at it of like the potential for the story. And like, okay, think about your map. Think about your map.
Yeah. I think that's everyone who lives in the middle of America needs to go and spend some time in the mountains. I think that, having grown up in the desert, surrounded by mountains and doing a lot of hiking in the hills and living in a valley, similarly, the valley that I lived in was this almost like bowl and I was surrounded by mountains. I just think that perspective is really nice. And there's something about topography that is really inspiring, but it's a complete aside. Anyhow, I hope that answers your question, Paige. It was really fun to think about, and we appreciate hearing from you and anyone else who wants to write to us. Please do. We only have a couple episodes left, Kelton,
I know.
of the season.
Obviously, it's on my calendar. When
2 more
we
episodes.
transition from recording to writing, I am nervous. I'm nervous about our big deadline. And I don't want to disappoint you or our listeners or myself. So it's gonna be interesting fitting it all in.
We have until after Labor Day because we're going to come back from our summer hiatus after Labor Day. We already have some interviews scheduled, which is really exciting. One thing to everyone who's listening, Kelton and I worked on a listener survey. We are data girlies and want the data on how we're doing. So if you are a regular listener, even if this is your first episode, we would love to get some feedback from you guys on how we're doing and how we can make the podcast even better. So we will be linking to the survey in the show notes. We'll post it on social and our Substacks and it'll be everywhere. And we'll keep reminding you for these next couple episodes to please, give us some feedback because we would love to hear how we can do more and what you guys are interested in. And if you want to go on a retreat with us and if we sound the same and what your star signs are.
Yeah. If anything, I just need you to tell me your big 3. I'll be waiting. I'll be doing a chart reading for our listeners.
I think it'll be so fun to know, the types of people that gravitate towards this format. But please fill out our listener survey. All right, Kelton, what's the plan? What's the plan for the week?
What are we doing this week? Well, let's see. It's by the time you listen to this, it's going to be June.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. Oh my God. All right. Well, that means that I got to get cracking on the newsletter. So for me, I think it's going to be 2 newsletters, 1 session of novel writing. I know that those are things I have to do the first
I was going to say.
but I, in being learning to be gentle with myself, I do think it's nice to like give yourself a goal you can complete. And I want to finish. Oh, you know what I'll also do? And the advice that I gave our dear friend Paige, I am going to write a 1-pager on my Caribbean love story.
Love that.
Okay. So that are Kelton's goals for next week are to write 2 newsletters, one paid, one Sunday. Do 1 session of writing on the novel. Doesn't matter how much, doesn't matter what I get done, just as long as I sit with the novel and think about it. And then a 1-pager on this Caribbean love story idea that I have.
I like that. All right. My goal for the next week, I have 2. First, I do need to figure out what I'm going to be submitting for my MFA program. It's really hard because it's like a 5,000 word count limit. And I'm struggling with that.
Does it have to be a complete thing in 5,000 words, or can it be like this is the first half?
I think that it can be whatever, but we are going to be workshopping it and getting feedback on it. So I want to provide something that feels somewhat complete. And I've been attempting to cut down my short story to fit the 5,000, but it's really like I'm weed whacking, like not even weed whacking. I'm like forest clearing. It's hard. And then I looked at the first chapter of the Gustafson novel, and it's a little over 5,000 words. So I need to decide what I want to do. And I actually went into my email this week to try and figure out like even where to submit it. And I couldn't figure it out. I also need to figure out who I want to request as my advisor. So I need to do some research on that. So that's getting my house in order for my MFA program is important, something that I need to do.
Okay.
And then outside of that, I think giving myself the goal of trying to write at least once would be a good one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's enough.
Okay.
You know, like we're both still climbing out of the hole. I don't want us to get any more DMs about how tired we look. So I don't think setting overly ambitious goals is what we need to do right now.
Like I put so much makeup on too.
If anyone wants to slide into our DMs and be like, wow, Kelton, you look 33. Maybe that would help me.
Oh, I am tired though. I am tired. Yeah. But that's okay. We persevere. We have just a few more weeks until summer and all of the freedom that it brings for me, from the kids' school, for you, from me, from this podcast. Listen, the podcast is a lot of work. It's so rewarding though. I'm so happy that we do it. I get so much out of being able to talk to you every week. And I was thinking about it because for listeners who don't know the backstory, Kelton and I worked together for, a year and a half. I was only at Headspace for a year and 4 months, I think.
So crazy to me. It feels like we worked together for the entire time I was there.
Yeah, I was like, get me the fuck out of this place. But Kelton made such an impression and left such an impression, and our friendship stayed true for such a long time. But this is the closest we've ever been to each other.
Yes, that's true.
So it's been really great. And we've met so many great people and created this fun community. And I am looking forward to coming back re-energized at the end of summer and doing it all over again, and hopefully with some improvements from the survey. So you know what? Life's good. Life's good. We're healthy. We got a whole summer ahead of us.
Yeah. And next week, we are interviewing a friend and writer, Heather Hansman, who has written some books I really, really love. So I'm excited for that. And then hopefully, maybe on our final episode after that, we can get some good listener questions. So harass us, get in the inbox, and get in the final episode.
Yes, please. Also, if we have some good data from the listener survey, we're going to share it with you all regardless, because we like to be transparent that way, but we'll talk about some of the results of the survey if you get a chance to answer before. Well, we're recording that final episode on the 11th of June, so you do have some time.
You have some time. Send in your questions. You know where to find us at officialpenpalspod@gmail.com. You can also DM us on TikTok, and you can find me on Instagram at KeltonKin. You can find both of us on Substack, Krisserin.substack.com, and then Shangrilogs.substack.com, which is coming back. I'm so excited for my home series this summer. And am I missing anything?
Yeah, follow us at PenPalsPod on Instagram and on TikTok, and we will be posting the survey to penpalspod.substack.com. We're going to post it everywhere. We're going to post
You're
it
gonna see it a
everywhere.
lot. You're gonna see
You're
it a
going to see it a
lot.
lot. Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening and happy writing.
Happy writing.